Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forge Within podcast, where real people share how mental health has shaped their lives, and hopefully together we can work to break the stigma around mental health. Last week was the first episode of having a guest on, and we had my mother on. It was a really emotional episode in a lot of aspects because even though I knew it, to actually speak face to face on a podcast for the world to hear it, it was a bit of a real eye opener. Even though it kind of set me back in a few different elements, I was able to have a better understanding of the emotional load that my mother went through. And that's what this podcast is all about. This podcast is all about having these real conversations with people who have the real experiences, and hopefully everyone can learn something from those people who come on the podcast. And today, for the second episode, I'm having the great privilege of bringing my son into the podcast. His name's Lloyd Screen. So, hello, Lloyd. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing fantastic.
Good, 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 good. So, I thought it'd be a really, really good idea to have Lloyd in today. He's an exceptionally young person, been through a lot of experience himself. He's doing a lot of stuff with drama at the moment. He's only 18, but he's not like an 18-year-old. He's more older and wiser than me. He just haven't got the grey hairs and the beard yet. So,
Yep,
but no, we're gonna have a really good, honest conversation about a few topics. We sat down and worked through how we're gonna what's the best way to put this story out there. We're gonna talk about COVID and how the impact that COVID had as well. We're gonna talk about relationships and friendships around mental health, Lloyd's experience of mental health. Something that we also thought would be important is to have a conversation about how Lloyd's seen me with my mental health and if that had an impact on him. And then Lloyd also found religion as well then to help with his mental health. And I know he's very passionate about that. And there are another few things that we'll touch on, but we'll just get started and we'll get into the conversation. So let's go. So how are you today, Lloyd? How are you?
I'm doing amazing. I'm excited to be on this. I think it's just gonna be a normal conversation for us two at the end of the day, isn't it? Because fuck me, we've had some interesting rabbit hole explorations in our time together. Like we've just gone sat in the kitchen loads of times and just talked about so much stuff really deeply. So I think this is just another Tuesday.
It's definitely like another Tuesday. That's why I thought it'd be a really good thing to have you on the podcast and we can have these in-depth conversations. You know how passionate I am about mental health and what we're trying to do in regards and moving the needle for people. So it's going to be really, really good. So what I want to do, just start off, just give a bit of an introduction about who you are, what you're currently doing, and then we'll just give a bit of a brief idea of what your understanding of what mental health is.
Sure. Well, as you've introduced me, I'm Lloyd Screen. I'm an 18-year-old boy. I'm a pretty regular teenager, as much as you'd like to big me up, and I experience things equally as most people my age do. What am I doing at the moment? I do a lot with musical theatre, I do. So I've been in college for the past 2.5 years now, studying musical theatre in Crosskeys College. And that has been, well, the past 2.5 years has been the most growth in my life, I'd say, doing something completely different and really finding my passion in this. And I'm looking to go to uni now with it. So I'm auditioning this year and possibly getting away from home. So that's going to be very interesting. Um, yeah, I don't know what more to say. I think that's
No, I think that's a really good. I think that's really good, and I want to touch on that. I know this you've got an awful lot on. There's been an awful lot of growth, like you said, and we'll touch on that in a bit as well, talking about your growth as a person and also having your diagnosis then with your your stomach and everything.
yeah,
We
yeah.
we can go into as well and the impact that that had on you. But what I want to do, we'll start off on the earliest point of the mental health journey. So I would imagine that would be COVID. Is that right? COVID would have been the earliest thing for you.
I think COVID was like the earliest I can think of really in depth experiencing mental health. Before that, it was probably just like comp time. So like year seven upwards. I started experiencing what I would say were like my first real experiences of like mental health issues, like things of anxiety with being in classrooms, doing exams, fear of judgment from people. Like it all kind of started in that comp environment, being surrounded by hundreds of other students, and you're growing up at that age, so hormones are flying as well, and these things are circulating. And yeah, it was, well, you obviously know, it was about COVID time then that I probably experienced my worst thing of it, because COVID is an interesting one to go into for me, because when I think back to it, like, it wasn't the worst experience for me. And it wasn't for a lot of people my age, because we found so much enjoyment in just like being lazy and just having time away from school. Like when you're young, anytime you get a day off or a week off school, you're like, yes, yes, we're off. And it was that same thing. We were like, 2 weeks off, let's go. Obviously, turned into more than that. But we were just at home playing games. I was like FaceTiming every night with my mates, because I would keep you up every single night. I was so loud just in my room playing like Minecraft or Roblox or something, just shouting at like 2 in the morning. And that was our whole routine. But obviously that got me pretty unhealthy, because I got into a terrible routine, like a lot of people, of staying up late, sleeping in halfway through the day. I wasn't getting sunlight. I wasn't hydrating or eating properly. Just basic human things I wasn't doing. I wasn't showering very well and just keeping myself, my hygiene and everything. Um, it wasn't very healthy, and I was just at home playing games, chilling, doing God knows what. And it wasn't bad in the moment, but then it was that period coming out of it when we started slowly integrating back into normal life. And then it was like, oh no, I've got myself into such a different routine that going back to normal life was just so weird then, because I was having all these late nights. I was being really unhealthy. I hadn't been outside. I hadn't really talked to anyone apart from FaceTimes. And it was like not just a light switch kind of thing to be able to go back to normal life then straight after that. And I had a very, very hard time then going back to socializing and being in school and seeing people. And anxiety was the thing that hit me really hard then coming out of COVID, because I could not bring myself to get out of the house a lot of the time, and to go and see my mates, and to go and stay in a classroom for any longer than a couple minutes, being like surrounded and closed in by a lot of people. I had I'm not diagnosed with anything like that, but I had something that seemed to be very similar to the experiences of agoraphobia, because every time I would get into a classroom or a space like that with lots of people and I was closed off, I got so anxious because I hated the feeling of, oh my God, I can't get out right now. I'm stuck with all these people, and I could feel my heart going. I felt sick. And that stopped me from going to school. And you know what it was like. There was a whole like year period where I was practically just homebound, still stuck in that terrible routine that COVID got me into. And like even attempting to go out of the house was such a massive thing. Like I would be crying, I'd be in hysterics. I just couldn't do it. The thought and the idea of it became so grand for me then that I couldn't get past that, and I think that's always worse than the reality is the mental thing beforehand of overcoming something. And the longer I stayed away, it just built and
Yeah.
built and built, and I got so anxious by the thought of doing anything like that, and it was so hard to overcome that in any way. And then being stuck in that routine, not only anxiety, but it brought a lot of um, depression then and depressive thoughts, and I was very, very unhealthy, and it's quite a, dark thing to talk about, but obviously we're being open.
No, that's 100%.
I don't think I ever would have been willing to actually do it, but I did have a lot of thoughts of, "What am I doing with my life? There's, like, no point me even being here. I can't get out of the house. I just sit home, play games all day. You guys wanted me to do more, but I just didn't want to overcome that. It was too scary." So I was just like, "I just wanna stay home in my comfortable environment."
Mm.
Something that's easy, and then sometimes the thought in my head was, "Well, the easiest thing is just to not be here." And I that thought did come to me sometimes, and I was just like, "What's the point? There's nothing for me, nothing in my life, like, there's no point of any of this." So it brought a lot of depressive thoughts, a lot of anxiety, and that was definitely my first major experience of it, and I think I've been dealing with it and growing with it ever since that, I would say.
Yeah, and that was excellently put. And just by being so Lloyd is my stepson. Lloyd isn't my biological son; he's my stepson. But I've been part of his brother and Lloyd's life now for the last 11 years. So I class them as my sons. And we've got a very very strong bond, all of us have as well. And just by hearing what you're going through and being a parent, and then relating back to how I felt, it's very, very hard to listen to it because I can remember I'm sat in the living room now as we speak and looking at the sofa, and I remember you sat and curled in the sofa, crying your eyes out. The emotions that were running through your mind, where I couldn't even hold a conversation, hold a sentence with you because you were uncontrollable with your emotions, and that feeling of helplessness was incredible. And for the first time, really, it was the kind of experience that I felt what my mother must have went through with me. And it was very, very difficult to see the. And what we got to remember, COVID was 2020, so we're talking 5 years ago. So at this period of time, Lloyd was 13 years of age. So you have a 13-year-old now with all these different things, doesn't want to leave the house with agoraphobia, very, very self-conscious, doesn't want to do anything, losing weight, and you want them to you want your children to go back into normality, and you feel pressured. What I felt as a parent, and I learned a lot, is that I felt pressured to, you must go to school, you must get up, you must do that, because I was worried of the consequences of not going to school for you and then for us as parents, when really I should have thought you are the most important thing in the world. It doesn't matter about all that. Let's work from the bottom up. I think as parents we do things where we think that it's right and not necessarily it is right. So there is a part of me that wishes that I dealt with it differently with yourself. Um, but you
It
like we spoke to before, you learn and you grow from the scenario as well. And I think the routine of not getting involved in social environments, of that artificial world. Like COVID was absolutely fucking crazy. It was bonkers. When you think about it now that everything's shut down, you can't even comprehend what it was like. And I don't think any children, anyone will ever go through that. And not only that, me and your mother had to work, which was even harder, and we had no childcare. So in order for me and your mother to work, because times are crazy, you were 13, 14 years of age with your brother, looking after a 4-year-old in the house, which was my son as well, but
Yeah,
which was your one.
'cause I
So
forget I spent so much time with him,
yeah,
which
and
was In a way, it was nice because we got so close during that time. But again, yeah, I spent so much time with him just like playing games and doing stuff.
But you're expecting the problem is in that scenario then, you've got someone who is suffering with he's obviously going back to school, suffering with that mental health perspective. Because both me and your mother were frontline workers, we had to go back. That expectation was on you and your brother to look after and basically be like a father role um to your one as well, which was incredibly grateful, but it's a massive amount of responsibility for you to grow up soon as well. So there's an awful lot of things that contribute to that scenario. And when everything, the question obviously that you spoke about what life was like um during COVID, what was life like before COVID? So I just want to go a bit before. So we'll we've talked about how what it was like during COVID and everything, but did you see a massive difference in how you seen things before COVID and then how COVID actually changed you as we come out of COVID then that we just spoke about?
Well, that's interesting.
It's a good job, right? It's a good job that I'm tackling this now because you've only got to think back about 6 years. I can't think back 20 or 30 years now. I'm
Yeah,
too old.
got a memory like a goldfish, though. Um, I don't know. I would have thought there'd be some changes, yeah, because obviously it was a couple of years of growing up in that time, and I think I think it might have matured me a bit. To be fair, I think just dealing with mental health things in general, which I guess spiraled because of COVID. I think that matured me quite a bit, and in the time beforehand when I was going through comp, I was young. I didn't really have a sense of purpose or where I was going. I was following a lot of trends and the crowd, and I couldn't really think for myself as much, and I didn't have my own set of morals and strength. And I think there was probably an element of coming out of COVID or coming out of these mental health experiences that I grew a bit more like introspection. Is that the word? I think it is.
I think
Um,
so. I'm dyslexic as well. Do you know what I mean? I can so it's
I
it's a big word. Get your dictionary out. I can't.
yeah, but yeah, I think there was more of a sense of just inner strength and purpose, and I was probably a bit kinder coming out of it because I was more empathetic towards these things and other people dealing with these things. Because I don't think when I was younger I really thought about how you could hurt someone's feelings. But then I dealt with my own mental health problems, and I think I was much more aware of like, oh, like people have feelings, people have a consciousness, and certain things affect that. And I think I was much more aware of that and probably a lot kinder because of it. Because to be fair, a lot of people say I was a right dick in year like 7. So I think that's probably a lot of the reason. And I just followed a lot of other people. So yeah, I would say if anything changed, I just became a bit more emotionally intelligent, empathetic, kinder, and that has again grown ever since that. Um, yeah, that's what I'd say.
So with coming out the post with with 4 years out of COVID and everything as well now, do you find that there's any? I'll ask you, and then I'll ask what your perception is of others around you. So, do you feel that there's any other long-standing effects of COVID? Are we still impacts you now?
I got better at Rocket League.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You did get very good at Rocket League. For those who don't know what Rocket League is, it is a game on all platforms, on gaming consoles where you're a car and you got to try and score a goal.
I,
A
I
goal.
Champion 3, not to brag in, but I spent, like, over 10,000 hours on that game. But no, I'll be honest, I would say no, probably not. For me personally, like, I dealt with a lot of, yeah, mental health things coming out of it. Now that's a thing that I deal with as I grow, and I grow with it, but I think everyone finds that somewhere down the line in their life, and grows with that and learns to cope with that. Um, but I wouldn't say there's anything else really from COVID. It's interesting talking about COVID, by the way. Side note, because in my college, we literally started this year, we had to do a devised musical theatre piece, and our subject was theatre during COVID, and it was really interesting because we made it quite emotional as well, and it was interesting to look at how, like, theaters closed down, how that affected workers during that time, and people like us who had a real passion for that. Um, and then we made it very, like, relatable, and God, we made a couple audience members cry. That's a complete side note, but it was weird having COVID, kind of be at the forefront of something we did recently, because we don't really think about it as much anymore. Me personally, I wouldn't say it holds me back anymore. I can't fully speak for everyone else my age, but I think it's the same thing. I think the most I've heard of COVID really affecting is more from adults than anything.
Yeah, I think like for myself, I worked as a delivery driver when I was during COVID, and I used to deliver out to a lot of people. A funny story, one funny story, even though COVID was horrific, I remember delivering the shopping to this man's house, and it was like over us. The stuff I seen during that period was absolutely crazy. There was a tannoy system. Just come with a megaphone for the window. Do not move. I was like, okay, with the shopping in my hand, thinking, what's happening? And I was like, okay. And they were going, place the shopping on the floor and step
Oh
back
my
from the
god.
path. I was like, whoa, what's happening
Like,
here? Next thing,
so
oh, oh, you're this now. Next thing I know, out he comes with like a World War II hazmat mask on.
no way.
Yeah. And I was like,
I'm telling you,
wow.
mate. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, yes. I think there was just lots of moments during that time where it just tested people's resolve and inner strength because everyone wanted to keep people safe, and that just shows the kind of lengths that people will go. I would deliver shopping to people who were like double leg amputees, and you wasn't allowed to take the shopping in through the door whatsoever, and they're struggling to get up their legs, and then they don't see their loved ones, and the impact that had. What a personal story for me. One of my family members, my nan was diagnosed with cancer during that time, and no one could go into the house to comfort her and talk to her and everything. And that was,
Yeah.
I can't imagine the emotional and mental impact that had on not just us as a family, but also my nan, most importantly. So there was a lot of I think COVID had a massive impact on a lot of people going forward. Socially, you've got to look at the pubs. A lot of pubs where people used to go and socialize and have the conversation. I'm a big advocate for going in a pub drinking because I don't drink myself, but just going out and facial interactions and chatting and having a conversation, which is really, really important. Lots of pubs now are dying off because everyone built bars in the garden and they realised they were happier staying in. So that
Mhm.
side of social interactions going. So and that aids, I believe anyway, not having that face to face interaction of communicating and using technology to pick phones up or not speaking to everyone. That reinforces that message of there's no one to talk to. I haven't got anyone. Whereas you could go to a bar and you could distract the conversation up, and if you did drink over a pint or two, and then your emotions run. That's a big thing for men as well. I'm not saying that women don't struggle, but a lot of men would use the pub as a social ground to socialise. But that obviously isn't happening anymore with the closure of pubs. So I think the long-standing effect of COVID have had an impact even now, 4 to 5 years on, and whether that's a signature to looking at whether suicide rates are up. But I think there's lots of different factors that can aid to that, and the way that the current NHS has got, like I said it last week, 1.5 million people waiting on the NHS list, and they can't even speak to anyone. And that's the ones we actually know about, and the ones who are not coming forward. So yeah, COVID, I think had a real big impact, and it's a good job now we're coming out the back end, and there's stuff happening to try and help those people who were impacted by
I think
mental health.
I think there was definitely, though, I agree with what you were saying, a social impact, and even still now, there's a little bit of a like, there's a little bit of integration still happening, going back to like social face-to-face interaction for some people. I think that was definitely the case, and I know, like, it was so weird going back to, like, normal life and face-to-face talking people. It was like opening the door to another world, like, being back talking face-to-face to people, but then that's so normal and so healthy and so undervalued, I think, in how important that is. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah. But I think it's really important you coming on, and that's why I wanted to start with those questions to start with, because COVID was such a big impact in a lot of people's lives, but it was the way that it impacted a lot of children as well, that no closure of school. And that's why I wanted to bring it up first thing, because y- as we sit here and talk now, you were an advocate. You were telling people how it felt, and a lot of people at your age don't come forward and speak about them emotions. And what I hope with this podcast, and especially as we keep communicating through, there'll be people out there around your age, 18 to 20, or maybe 16 to 18, and they'll be able to think, all right, okay, I get it. That's how I felt. And then if that then sparks that conversation with their parents,
Mm,
that I'm actually struggling, that's all that matters. And that's the strength of having these real and honest conversations, because you kind of relatably say, I'm not on my own, and it's okay not to be okay. We keep saying that all the time, and as we move into the next part now of the podcast, and we talk about obviously home environment, I've really tried from as much as I've really struggled with my mental health all the way through of being a stepdad and being a father as well. I've really tried to emphasize the fact of it's okay to be emotionally open with your emotions. We very rarely shout in our house at all. It's normally, if you've done something wrong, we'll sit down. If you're feeling this way, we'll talk about it 100% honesty. A lot of parents might listen to this and think, well, I don't agree with that. Well, I would argue differently, that it's worked massively in our favour. Hence why when people listen to you now today, they'll realise the maturity of an 18-year-old speaking on a mic. And that's due to the fact that we've had these conversations where we can have this openness to understand not just our physical health, but it's our mental health as well, which
yeah.
is just as important.
If not more, I would say. And I would fully advocate to anyone my age that, and yeah, to parents who might look at this and disagree with this kind of openness and honesty, from my own personal experience, as much as it has been a challenge and has been very hard sometimes, the thought and the action of coming forward and being open and honest about my thoughts and feelings to you guys or to anyone, it's been one of the best things I could ever do for my mental health. And there's still moments now where I struggle to talk about things, but anytime I do, it's always the quickest, surefire way of starting some sort of change in a positive way. And I would fully advocate for it. It's hard, I know it is, but it's one of the best things you can do for yourself.
I wanna dip into something a bit from my perspective, and it's probably a bit of inner guilt to myself, because I very openly talked about my mental health and how my actions. There was a bad relapse in 2018 where you're all conscious of, where um you could all see how visually how much I was struggling with when I was on diazepam and mental health and everything. And like I've said to you when we done this podcast today, being 100% honest, but I just want you to give for me, but for the listeners as well, that what did that feel like knowing that I was struggling with mental health? Did that have any impact on you as a person? Because a lot of parents that I speak to, they say that I need to make sure I wear this mask. And we talk about this mask often. This mask of being a parent is showing that you're a Superman or Superwoman, and you don't want to show that you're cracking under pressure and you want to try and be consistent. Now, consistency is one of the hardest things you can do in life, and that is amplified when you bring into being a parent as well. But I was very open about mental health too. Very, very open about mental health, my struggles, and then what you've seen. Did that have what impact did that have on you as a person?
Well, talking about the 2018 relapse, I'll be totally honest in that I don't think that impacted me massively because I think I was too young at the time to really get too much of that. Maybe unconsciously, it might have had an effect on how I am now. But then moving on from that, I can talk about just like you in the way you are and how you're honest. And I've seen you on other occasions than that struggle and be open and honest about that. And I think what scares people the most about opening up, at least in my own experience, and I would think this is similar for a lot of people, is that we're scared of being a burden on other people. We're scared of other people having to carry that weight and that being draining for them not wanting us around because we're draining to be around because we're negative and we bring things down. And I think that's always a fear of opening up. But like majority of the time, it is never the case. Like if you open up to someone like you, for example, in times you've opened up to me, or you've just like crumbled in front of me and you've cried to me and you've had moments like that, it's never felt like a burden or a weight for me to carry because I'm not feeling exactly what you're feeling. I'm not carrying that weight. We might think that we make the other person do that, but that's just not the case. So I'm not carrying that burden. And me personally, I actually get something good sometimes from being able to help out other people, being there for others and being sympathetic and just someone to lean on. That actually sometimes has a positive effect um, for me. Because actually, there's something interesting about that. I remember ages ago, I took this course online by this Yale teacher, Laura DeSantos, I think her name was, and it was the Science of Happiness or something like that. Very interesting course, by the way. If anyone wants to look that up, I took that not far from COVID time actually, and I learned a lot from that. And there was a bit in that which said about the science behind how if you focus your attention sometimes on someone else's mental health, that doesn't, even if they're struggling, that doesn't bring you down. In fact, that can be very, very good for your mental health to be attentive to others. So I've oftentimes gotten something good from that, and it's never been a burden. I'm kind of losing my train of thought going on this point, but what I was saying was I think that's a big fear, is that we don't want to be yeah, a burden to others when we open up about our feelings and things. But that's not the case, and when you've done that, it's, I think, unintentionally over the years given me the nudge to be more open myself then as well, just seeing you being okay with not being okay and just communicating. it wasn't something I got instantly. Like I said, even now, and we've been through a lot. I may be 18, but we have been through a lot. But even now, I still have moments where I don't want to open up to you. But I've gotten so much better over the years, and I never got it instantly, but I think just seeing that constant openness and having conversations every now and again just gives you that push to be more and more free with things like that.
For me, one of my biggest things of when I struggled and I become a father in 2014, for the first year being a father to you and Kyan, your older brother,
Mm.
trying to be, and I've spoke about this in my early podcast, trying to be a father whilst carrying so much trauma inside and trying to be that role model. So the mask that you wear, it becomes even more in bounded, basically, if that's a word, into your flesh and skin, and you try to put this fake image on all the time. And when you struggle with your mental health, that becomes you don't know what's real and what's not. And then you set yourself up for a fail. And I remember there was a moment in 2018 where I'd come home, you can't remember, and I had to ask my mother, your mother had to go to work because she was working in the hospital at the time, so she had to leave, she was gone. So I had to take you, I was off work, I had to take your kids to school, and I was in absolutely no condition to take you to school at all. And I had to ask my mother to come down. But when my mother had come down, I had just lost all incontinence. I'd peed myself on the bottom of the stairs and just mentally broken. And I remember sitting there thinking, I haven't got the energy to get up. I don't have the energy to get up. And see my mother's face come through the door, knowing that you were upstairs watching Pokemon or whatever you was watching at the time, and then Kyan then was just waking up to trying to hide that without and trying to protect you as well. You get a lot of guilt, an incredible amount of guilt
Yeah.
inside, and you always have this. They always have this element where you've struggled with your mental health. Kyan has struggled with his mental health, and then Johan, the youngest now, he has obviously developed really bad tics, and that's impacted his mental health. And what happens then is that you start having doubts in your mind, thinking, "Is this my fault? Is
Mhm.
this my fault because I've been too open about my mental health and I've spoken about anxiety and depression, what I'm feeling? Have they picked up them behaviors?"
Yeah.
And for a long period of time, I believed that to be true. But when I looked at now, when I look at the maturity level in yourself, what you're doing now and how you have come across so far in this podcast excellently, as I knew that you would, how Cayenne has changed things around, and he's now working in a SEN school with children with learning disabilities, and he's flying as well. And then the maturity level, even though he's still young, he's still 11 years of age, and he has moments. A lot of people know Yoa, and his maturity level is very, very high for his age as well. So it, there are elements to it, me thinking that, yes, I did hold myself guilty, but the emotional intelligence that you lot have because of that allows you to be better people for it. And then how you reach out to friends, how you help, how you say, I hope I've had a nice day. Like, how many parents can listen to this now, right? Every single day I come in, my youngest turn and say, me, keep safe, Dad. How was your day gone? Love you, whatever. Lloyd will come down and say, love you. Hope your day's going okay. Kyan will do the same thing as well. All of them. I'm not saying no one does that, but because we've had that we're so in tune. You boys are so in tune with your emotional understanding of making sure that you're okay. The house then feels as if we can openly talk about it. And I'm not saying that a lot of households don't have that policy in place, but when children feel that they can't go to their parents because they think that, again, they're going to be putting a burden on them and they won't understand, that could be, and I'll emphasize that could be a factor that contributes to mental health problems, suicidal tendencies, and all them things, because it all comes down to one thing. I said it last week, We have 2 ears and 2 eyes for a reason. You listen, you watch, and then you speak. And when we can put them three together in that order, we're allowed then for that child or that young adult to feel heard, which is a really important, and valued, which means then that they can then talk openly about their mental health. And I really hope that, well, I know anyway, I know that you feel that way, and that's the way we kind of
Yeah.
communicate and talk.
And
So
I
it's,
I would love to reassure you on that guilty feeling, because what I can say is that, with absolute certainty, everyone in this world, and young people, people my age, experience mental health issues to an extent in which most people probably aren't aware of. We all deal with shit. With that, that already goes to show that, like, this kind of parenting isn't a direct cause of us experiencing those things. I think we would have had that either way, but I don't think it's ever a good idea to be afraid of showing vulnerability to your kids, because what does that teach them? It teaches them that they can't be vulnerable, that they can't show those things. And I don't think that's ever a good idea. I know there's always, yeah, that gnawing feeling of like, oh, I don't want to put these things on my kids or show them like any sort of negativity or darkness, because yeah, there is that fear of like messing something up, and that feeling of guilt. But I would reassure you that it's not a good idea to hide those things from a kid, because as you've said, in showing that to us, it's developed our emotional maturity, and our emotional intelligence very quickly, and I think we're all quite grown up in that element for our age, and that's not a bad thing. That's a very good thing, because we can go into situations with that strength, with that level of intelligence to know how to cope, to know how to overcome walls and challenges, um, in a healthier way, and to really prevent us from absolutely crumbling at the face of these problems which aren't really addressed enough. So, like, a lot of people, when they face these things, they don't know what to do. But we have a lot of grown up emotional intelligence when it comes to those things. And as you said, with that, it makes me a better person for other people as well, because I'm able to be there for, and I really have been as well, been there for a lot of my friends and a lot of people my age. There's a lot of people who have come to people like me, and I know a couple others who are quite emotionally mature and intelligent like this as well. And so many people come to them because they don't have these people around them. And I've been able to really, really help some of my closest people around me get through some challenging times. And that's an amazing thing. For That's why we're here, I think, is to be able to be there for each other, to be able to share a life together and pull each other up through these things. That's why we are made social creatures, I believe, is because we're not meant to be in this alone. We're meant to carry each other through all these things. And with the skills that I've gained from how our family dynamic is, I'm able to be that person for other people, and that feels amazing. So, yeah, I don't
do you know, right?
anywhere.
Why that was so powerful, what you just said there. And I really do hope, right, that whoever's listening to this podcast, really, really, if you get a chance, go back 2 to 3 minutes and listen to that, because what we've just explained then is by having this conversation around openly talking and having an understanding with your children that you are not Superman, we are breaking and I'll reiterate that again, we are breaking generational trauma.
Mhm.
Because I know now that with the three boys now, or hopefully with the youngest, that they will have this emotional maturity and understanding that by not talking to your children, and we are contributing to the issue that is striking us all in the face at the moment, which is the fact that people don't think that they can talk. If I add this bravado, if I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to cry in front of everyone, I'm going to say I'm the strongest person in the household, blah 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 blah. I'm going to reinforce that message to my sons that they can do the same thing. So the buck stops with me. And because I've done that, I have allowed then the next generation of my family to come through knowing that it's okay to talk. And this is why it's really important, especially people around who have children now and around my age. It's so important to break down them walls for your
But
children.
surely there's enough history to know by now that that thing of keeping the mask on and being strong for your children all the time doesn't work. And surely there's enough to know that already, because that's why we have these problems. And like you said, that does need to be broken.
Massively. It's one of the things that I'm really passionate about within the Barleys. My mother was incredible, incredible. Nan is incredible, right? The way she was on last week as well, and the way she communicates and talks, and how she's helped me with my mental health. My grandfather's an ex-Welsh miner, very very hard man. Always said he loved me and everything, but very I'm strong. I'm going to be this, and which is fabulous. But then what that did, that reinforced the message in my head that I need to be the man of the house. I need to be strong. I need to make sure that I'm providing. And sometimes that's not necessarily the right thing to do.
It's just scary because it's different. And
S-
that's why no one wants to approach that, because we aren't certain on what could come out of that. But again, we're trying to advocate for the fact that it does work, and I can speak from my own experience that it does. It's scary, but it needs to be tried.
There's a lot of single parents who need to be not just be the father, but to be the mother as well. So it's very, very hard for the parents. And I totally understand it. My mother was one as well. It's very, very hard for those parents to become the mum and the dad in the scenario. But that doesn't diminish the impact of having that honesty with your
Yeah.
children as well. So
And I think
if
it's a hard thing to do, and I understand that it is, because no matter how good a parent you may be, you are never, ever, ever going to get everything right. And this was something I wanted to go on to from what you were saying earlier about how it was being in the living room with me when I was breaking down and I couldn't leave the house and it just felt helpless. It didn't necessarily mean that the things you were trying weren't working. It's just sometimes things take time and a heck of a lot of patience to work for people, and for someone to become healthier, and for a situation to improve, a heck of a lot of time and patience. And that's something I would really like to reiterate. That's something in relationships, friendships in general, time and patience with trying to help people out. Um, and you will get a lot of pushback, especially from teenagers and people my age. We're growing up, we're going through hormones. So even if you're doing the right thing, like, there's always going to be an element of pushback. Like, there were so many times where I was like, I hated you, and I just hated what you were, and I just hated what you were trying to prescribe me with, not like actual medication, but like mentally, like the advice you were giving me. And I hated it and I pushed back on it. Looking back in a more like grown up, mature way, I can be like, like I see where you were coming from. I see what you were trying to do. But there is going to be an element of pushback always, especially when you're dealing with people our age. you just got to build that inner confidence and look
Mm.
after and care for yourself so that you don't lose yourself in the process, and so that you can be sure of the I'm trying to do the right thing. Just got to give it time and patience, because it's not always going to be perfect. Trying to parent, or just different relationships and things with people who are struggling, it's difficult, it's messy, but
But I think,
it takes an element of that, and yeah, it's not always gonna look perfect, and that's why it's scary, because you're doing something different, and you might think, oh, maybe this isn't working. But believe me, just give these things time, and it does pay off.
yeah, no, I did. I remember, like I said, you were in the bedroom, and then I would say to you, give us some advice, and the words that I would have from you is, pardon my language, I've heard this every fucking day. I don't need to hear it again. But I would always answer you back. I'll be in here tomorrow, the same time, telling you the
And
same thing.
I'm glad you did.
Mm.
And that must have been so hard to keep doing that. And I am so grateful that you didn't stop, because if you did, I might have not made it where I am. I needed that support, that push constantly. And you are gonna feel like you're not doing the right thing, especially when you get this kind of pushback, and you are gonna question of like, oh, is this kind of dynamic, this treatment, this openness and honesty, is it not a good thing? But I again would advocate for it. But when you're parenting, you're never gonna get things 100% right. It's always gonna be imperfections here and there, but you can't stress perfection. You never can.
No, yeah, that was the way that well, not me. I just guided the way that you dissected that. That's going to help an awful lot of people in regards of that generational trauma, because it's all good me sitting in here saying this works, this works, this works, but as you can hear now, this is coming proof from someone who, this isn't staged or anything. This is honest conversations. We try to keep it as real as we can, and this just shows what being open can do to that generation coming through as well. Okay, so what I want to do now, I want to talk about. We've mentioned it previously when we were just having this conversation about parenting and everything. I want to go into relationships and friendships, because you did mention it a few times as well. So during your time of I know a lot of people, you gain friends, some are friends, some are associates and everything, but did you, as your emotional intelligence and maturity and understanding of mental health and other aspects about work, did your friendships change during that time, and how you seen them? Because for me, I thought I had an awful lot of friends. I thought I had like tons of friends all over Driga, and everyone liked me. Now, as time's gone on, I've realized that my friendship group is very, very low, and a lot of them were associates, and a lot of them don't really accept me for who I am, which is totally fine. But that's as I've matured and understood about mental health and my own self. That's made me realize, okay, I need to surround myself with people who are positive, not negative. They're not the ones who are going to impact my mental health and make me feel bad about myself. They're going to be ones who make me feel good, happy, and want to push forward in life and achieve everything I can, even though I do struggle with mental health every day. So that's my example, but I just want to put that to you. So how did your friendships change over that time of you obviously maturing towards understanding mental health more?
Yeah. Um, I agree with what you've just said. I think there was some friendships in which, as I grew, I became a bit more aware of just where some negativity was lying in some of the things people would just say and communicate, and the ways they would act. And some of these people, I didn't necessarily like stop being friends with them. I just noticed like a lot of the things they were saying, how it affected me, and I just grew a bit more of a inner confidence to know, or not to know, but to keep doing what I'm doing, to keep being who I am, um, and to not let what other people say stop me from doing that and make me feel bad about that. So I would agree with what you said on that. I think in comp, I had a lot of people that I knew, and I would say I was friends with a lot of people. As I've grown up, my groups have gotten smaller and smaller because obviously people go off, they do different things, so I didn't see as many people. Um, there were a lot of people that I guess, yeah, were more associates I weren't as close with, so they just went off and I didn't really care to stay around. And then as I was going on to musical theatre, I ended up developing closer friends who had those kind of passions as well, which was great for us to all like motivate each other to pursue something like that. It's interesting because everyone always like talks when you're younger about how like, oh, when we grow up, we might not see each other again. And like we might not still be friends, and that's a scary thought. And we always would talk about it, and we get so sad, and we'd be like, "Oh, we got to stay in touch. Like we can't." But as I've grown up, and a lot of my best mates have just gone off doing other things, my group has just slowly decreased, and I haven't really thought that much about it. I thought I would. I thought I'd like be more emotional about it. But as I've just gained different friends and started doing different things, I haven't really like cared too much about it. There's a select few that I still keep in touch with from like way back, but not many now, really. And it's only the ones that I really want around.
I think a lot of people I've built a network around me. I built a safety network with friendships around me that I know, like I just said before um you spoke, that they are there because they accept me for who I am, and when I need help, they are there. They are
Mhm.
there for me so I can offload, and then I can.
Yeah.
And some friends are, I will speak to them about different topics because I know that they can give me the best advice back. But I know an awful lot of people, because again, they don't want to be alone. They don't want to feel as if they're the odd one out. They would rather put themselves in situations where they feel that they have to stay in order to be liked. And as a consequence for that, that can lead into peer pressure. That can lead into doing things that you don't really want to do. And even though at the time you believe that I don't want to be alone, I think loneliness is a big thing to come into it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Because you don't want to be alone, you want to ensure that you fit in, but it goes against your morals. And because it goes against your morals, and you are fighting that inner battle, as we call, with the ego or the self-conscious mind, or whatever we call it, that then leads to you having a negative perception of your own self as well, which later down the line, once you start understanding that it's okay to be on your own and everything,
Hmm.
those foundational blocks of self-worth, of guilt, of loneliness, they all become ingrained in your psyche. So I think having that understanding that friends come, friends go. And
Yeah.
I heard a really fascinating quote the other week, and it was that when we're in any sort of friendship or relationship, we naturally say that, oh yes, it's over, it ended on bad terms. The way that I like to think about it now, with any relationships or friendships or whatever you have, it's run its course.
Mm.
It basically means that we've got to a stage where it's run out of energy. There is no end. There was no beginning. It's just run its course. and we both go our separate ways.
Yeah.
That way, during that period of time where you were together, it worked for you. But unfortunately, there will be a time where you grow apart. If you see each other again, fabulous. But it's not being so emotionally involved with that friendship group to the point of I don't feel comfortable anymore, but I need to stay here because I need to show that I don't want to be alone.
Yeah. You know, I actually want to bring in, I loved hearing the song For Good from Wicked. This is completely like, but I had never really listened to this song properly until I think it was in a musical showcase of one of my friends. Yeah, I think it was Maggie's showcase. Me and my mate Ollie, we went to watch it. And I was listening to these two people do For Good. And it was the first time I actually listened to the lyrics, and I was like, "Oh man, this is a really, really nice song." And it was when I was building up a relationship for the first time as well. And there was some lyrics in it that were things about like, "You'll always remain on me like a handprint on my heart." And it was things like that that I loved because I love the idea of, like you said, that if a relationship or a friendship is ending, it doesn't have to be on bad terms. And everyone who comes into your life serves a purpose in some way, offers you something, and grows you in some way, hopefully for good, hopefully for the better. Um, but everyone offers you something in your life. And I think all relationships have value in some way. Just wanted to bring that up because I love the lyrics in that song. Going back though to what you were saying about loneliness, that's an interesting one because I know someone, I'm very close to someone who has very openly talked to me about how loneliness pressured them into staying in certain friendship groups, um, and also a relationship that wasn't good for them, but they stayed in it because they were afraid of being lonely and they wanted to stay around the people who were known and who were popular. And that's such a scary thing, how that fear of loneliness and that awful feeling can pressure you into staying in things that negatively affect you like that. And I know personally, as I've grown my own inner confidence and strength, it's been the best thing because I can stand by my own morals. I have more of this sense of morals and purpose, and I have something, things that I fight for, and I go about my life with a bit more intention, and that stops me then from going into groups like that or doing things out of pressure that I don't really want to do because I feel quite sure of myself, and I didn't have that before. And that's come with just growing my inner confidence, and I think that's come a lot with performing and other things.
Leading on from that, then, with that understanding of friendships and understanding of how to form friendships and how to have that patience and the fact of not being lonely. How was that? Because I know you've got a really good well, you've got an amazing relationship with your partner at the moment, even though you're 18. Very, both very mature people in regards. Uh, but how has that helped you in developing understanding that the relationship dynamics, even though I would say there's a lot of people around at your age that they don't necessarily carry um that relationship intelligence of things need take time to work, and it's not just about sexual attraction. There's a deeper understanding. So I just want to get your interpretation on that, and then how then being in a relationship, how that again tests your mental strength and mental health as well.
Yeah, well, that has been for the past like year probably the biggest test of my character and resolve is taking on that kind of commitment. Because everyone talks about, especially adults, talks about this kind of commitment of taking on a relationship and stuff. But I don't think you're ever really aware of it until you actually go into it. And this is my first, and I'm hoping my last. And things are going really well now. But there was, and there have been some real challenges to get to this point that have taken. And that was why I was reiterating that point earlier of time and patience. It's taken a lot of time and a lot of patience to get through.
For me, with relationships, and I'll bring it back to mental health, is all about that. We talk about patience and acceptance. So with me, the first time when I was up in Tredegar and everything like that, couldn't hold down a relationship, didn't really have a long relationship. I never did, apart from one relationship with my mother. And I think a lot of people didn't accept me for who I am. So when we talk about acceptance, I had to, well, your mother accepted me for who I was, and that was someone who struggled with mental health, had a really big heart, but had a lot of issues as well. One of the things as well is that once I take the mask off, I can actually be me for the first time. I don't have to be someone else. So, like, I love anime. I love all the cartoon things. Hence why I got a good relationship with you boys and everything, because we all like Dragon Ball Z and all that stuff. But the fact that and again, I'm the games console. That's one of my things for escapism was my mental health. Now, your mother have accepted that. And because she's accepted that, I'm able then to feel more comfortable within the relationship, which then aids towards my mental health.
Mm.
The other thing is when you look at the patients. Now, in 2018, your mother had so much patience with me because I was mentally crumbling. I said to her that I was going to go off and do this big business idea, which was fabulous. I had it all planned in my head, and she warned me not to do it. Don't do it because it's not going to work out the way that you think. Being manic with my mental health, I chose personal gratification over family and relationships. Now, a lot of people in a lot of situations would look at it from a narrow perspective of going, you're wrong, this is it, we're having a divorce, it's over, you were done. But what your mother did is your mother had patience, even though it was very testing for her. She had
Mm.
patience to understand what was happening, what was going on, how can we make things better, and what we'll do is that it takes that time to get to that period that we actually want. Now, if your mother didn't have that patience with me, we probably would have had a divorce, and
Yeah.
then I wouldn't have been able to be there for you. I wouldn't have been able to be there for Kyan or for Johan, and I probably wouldn't be here today because I would have lost everything. So again, when we're in any sorts of friendships or relationships, having that two things, as Lloyd just said, having that understanding, acceptance, and then you follow that up with patience. When you put all them together, you were giving that person the space to grow and to feel valued. And
Yeah.
that's how I kind of look at a relationship. And it doesn't even have to be with, it could be a relationship with your family relatives. You might have a scenario where your family relative have really upset you. It could be a brother, it could be a sister. They could be going through things. And yes, the easiest thing to do is to cut people out of your life completely, cut them out. But what that does, it holds resentment and anger towards you. And over time, which I've noticed and I've had experiences with it, that will eat you alive. Like you will not believe over periods of time. So when you hold that resentment or anger or anything whatsoever, you really do struggle. Now, I'm not saying if you are in an abusive relationship or or you're in a scenario like that, staying there and hoping for the best
Mhm.
sometimes isn't the best scenario. I'm talking from a perspective of if you seen your loved one struggle with mental health, having the patience to understand what all the factors are, not just what you see with your eyes, is really, really important. You need to understand on a deeper level what's happening, how I can help, how I can support. That could be advising them to go to mental health services. If they're going through alcoholism, I'll give up alcohol so then I can help them. There's lots of different things that we can do to aid them towards that. But if we totally give up at the first hurdle,
Hmm.
then sorry to say, you are contributing to that problem.
Yeah,
You are contributing. If you just go on.
because it really is a commitment to share a life with someone like that. And there was so much test of my resolve for me with going through this with my partner, because like you said, there is an easy solution with a lot of friendships. Sometimes a healthy thing to do when someone's negatively affecting you is just to not keep them around. The trouble with that lies with the mental health is not an easy thing to just solve. So, for someone who really struggles to get better, they need that kind of help and support, which is unconditional, even when they're like really going through a messy period of it. Or else, like, if they just have people who leave them instantly, there's so many people out there that are never going to get better with these things. And it took so much patience for me, because there were so many times, like with you parenting for me, I was trying to help my partner through his struggles, and I felt awful. I felt so insecure about myself because I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. I didn't know if I was helping. I didn't know if anything was working because nothing was getting through. And there is an extent, like you said, where in some relationships, if nothing is working and if there isn't like a clear sign of intention to try and help themselves, there's only so much you can do to help someone. But if you really love someone, even if it's like incredibly messy, if you can see some clear sign of they're trying to help themselves, they're trying to do better, if you really love someone, you might be willing to go through that with them, which I was, because I very, very much love my partner. And there was a lot of hurdles, but with a lot of patience, I've seen a profound growth in a person who really struggled and was really insecure, um, quite crumbled, quite broken, really a shell of herself and the beautiful person I knew. And I've seen a crazy amount of growth to become a person now who's so confident, like even things just socially, for example, like it's funny, but doing things like calling up a waiter to like change a food item. Even I don't do that. That's scary for me. And I'm like, it's unbelievable to see those things now, but it took a lot of faith and a lot of patience, because there was so many moments where I questioned myself deeply in the relationship, and I didn't know if it was working or if what I was doing is right. But a relationship is a real commitment. And if you look at a relationship past the things of like sexual attraction and just how a person looks and how a person is uh, in what they give you of first impressions and just their outside iceberg of themselves, the real depth of a person in a relationship, when you go to it to that extent. I always like the idea of when people get married, how you say in your vows you'll be with someone through sickness and in health, because that's how deep I feel a relationship should be, not these plastic material things. I'm waffling, but um
No. It's good because what's interesting is listening to you, and what people need to remember when they whoever's listening to the podcast is that you're 18 years of age, and it's really it's really empowering to hear someone at your age and their understanding of what they believe relationships are like. And now I'm not saying a lot of people don't understand them, but there's a deeper understanding of trying to help people. Now, all this comes from that mental maturity. Again, we go back a few moments before when we were talking about that generational trauma. Now, it all starts from that by having that patience and understanding how that goes from there. It's it's a real interesting concept, relationships, because they they can be very, very hurtful, and they can help at the same time. But patience is key, is pivotal to having any sort of understanding and allowing that person that you love to flourish in their own way. And one thing I want to touch on as well is that necessarily when we have these issues, when we talk about with our partners, a lot of them are not the insecurities of the partner. They're the insecurities of yourself. And sometimes you need to look
uh,
at yourself and work on yourself. And we had this discussion a while ago because when you were talking about, again, first relationship, getting back into it, and you were talking about how the relationship was working and how it was affecting you, and then I opened the question to you, which you found very difficult to start with, but then when you actually reflected on it, you kind of understood, because I said, well, maybe the insecurity is not with your partner; it might be with you. So sometimes you need to work on yourself, because otherwise, if you bring your insecurities into a relationship with your mental health about everything, that can contribute
yeah,
negatively to the relationship. So it's
and
basically like,
look, a lot of the problems that we had, it definitely emphasized them quite a bit. Um, when I because it was such a new thing for me that even though I would say I'm quite a confident person and I had developed a lot of um inner strength before going into this relationship from the stuff I dealt with before, this was a whole new predicament that I had found myself in. So again, I questioned a lot about myself. And like you said, relationships can be hurtful, but they can also be amazing. And I think there's been a lot in my experience of it that has been so difficult and so testing for me. But with patience through those hard times, and with both of us growing in facing those challenges and developing more of an understanding of each other and how we work, we've ended up developing something so beautiful that has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. So and I'm always grateful for it. So I think a lot of people, especially my age, give up too easily on a relationship when it needs to be known the kind of commitment it is and what it takes to really form something life lasting and beautiful like that, and how you have to love someone unconditionally through sickness and in health. And sometimes you have to go through those hard times then. So, yeah.
oh, very well said, Lloyd. Very well said. I think that was an excellent understanding of where you see relationships. And what I want to do is, as we come in with, obviously we're past halfway the podcast, and I want to look at tying things into the end topic, which will be then your religious belief and everything. But something I want to touch on from how things impacted me, and then I want to relate it to you, is So I played badminton for Wales for years and years and years, from the age of 11 up to 18 years of age. And that sense of wanting to be elite and wanting to be the best at something. Now, a lot of people who will listen to this, your friends and everything, will say that you're very talented in regards of your acting perfection, your get that right, your acting profession,
Thank you.
and you really are excelling. But I do know that there's two things to unwrap within this, and that's that. For those who don't know, Lloyd was diagnosed with ulcerated colitis during about 2 years ago. Lloyd, is that right?
Yeah. First year of college it was.
Yeah, so he's always struggled with lactose intolerant, but uh it's got progressively worse over the years until 2 years ago until it happened. But during that time, there was a period of Lloyd was doing really well within his college, with his acting. He was late coming into it, so he only started when he was 16, so he had a lot of catching up to do. So what I want to do, I just want to dissect that, because if there are people out there at a young age who are suffering from anorexia or from a medical condition, as well as trying to achieve a goal of theirs, I think it's really, really important to have an understanding of your experience on that topic, and how it made you felt, and how it changed you, and what are you doing now to allow yourself to not be as critical on yourself.
Being diagnosed with colitis was an interesting one because that's the worst experience I've had of anything like physically life changing. And it took me out of college for the first couple weeks of it, and I was in hospital for like 2 weeks. And it was a an interesting period because I already at this point I was developing into, I would like to say, quite a grown up person for my age. So I already had quite a lot of strength and resolve. And I think that showed in that 2 week period. Because I managed to get through it pretty well and I stayed pretty happy and strong throughout it. But it's a scary thing. It was scary when it happened, and it's a scary thing if I ever get a bad flare up of it again, because it always brings these like these very paranoid thoughts into my head of like what could go wrong with this condition, the possible side effects of the medication I take, the possible long-term effects, and how it could stop me doing what I love. It was a scary time because I lost a lot of weight. I couldn't go anywhere. I lost a lot of blood. I was bleeding constantly, and there was no substance to anything that was coming out of my rear end, to put it in one way. Yeah, and I was just bedbound in a hospital, and I had to go. I had like endoscopies and colonoscopies, and that was, oh, I hated that, and that was so scary. Yeah, it was an interesting time, and I've dealt with a couple flare ups as well, and it brings on that sense of paranoia. But I would say it's a time, and it's a thing I have, which again has grown my resilience even more, to get through that, to not let it stop me, to not let it darken the person I am, or to taint my personality. Like, these negative experience haven't hardened me in a bad way. Like, I'm still um soft in the way I approach people, but I'm resilient, and I'm strong, and I can get through these things. So it's funny, isn't it, how like you'll always look back on bad experiences like this and hard times. I find I always look back on it with gratitude and just thinking, I gained something from this. I always gain so much more, and I think most people do, from hard times than I have good times. and it changes me into a much stronger, better person. Uh,
That's an interesting, sorry to cut you off. That's an
yeah,
interesting
go on.
concept because I think an awful lot of people, I use my experiences that I've been through, and it's been littered with, yes, a lot of highs, but it's been littered with an incredible amount of lows. And there's been countless setbacks, setback after setback after setback. There are people out there, there are quite a lot of people out there that lets their failures define who they are and their hardships. And it takes great resolve in order to pick yourself back up and keep going. And I think if people can learn to use their experiences as life lessons, like you have, like what I have, and there are a lot of people out there on social media and other platforms and lived experience speakers using their experience not just to help others, but to really embed the fact that you can achieve anything. That's a really positive way to look at it. But it's very, very hard for those people who are stuck in that negative mindset. But
Yeah,
I'll reiterate this. This all comes down to you. This all comes down to the person's perception of it all. If I was having a conversation with you or someone in front of me who'd been through a lot of problems and a lot of trauma, we'll work through it. Not me, it could not be with me, it could be with a therapist, a counselor, your family, or anything, work through it. The problem stands with people who decide that, nah, I'm not doing anything about it. And then they actively contribute to their mental health by going out and drowning their sorrows with alcohol or with other things. Unfortunately, as bad as your trauma is, that still comes down to you not openly wanting to process it and move on from there. A lot of people do contribute to their mental health and let their issues define who they are. Trauma is really tricky. Situations you've been through, like it's very, very easy for Lloyd to think, I'm super paranoid now. I was going to the toilet like 20 times a day, which he was, passing
yeah,
blood back end, having probes up his backside and everything. That could have really impacted him. But instead, it's like, okay, take it as positive. Let's move forward. These are the cards I got dealt. It's not going to stop me. That's the mentality. But you only get there through, again, I reiterate, it takes an awful lot of fucking hard work and a lot of time together. You can't automatically just click your fingers one day and go, I'll tell you what, I'm going to forget about everything. It doesn't. Again, like we said about relationships and friendships, it's patience, it's consistency, it's time. It
yeah,
takes time
definitely,
massively.
and so much hard work. And I think you talk about the fear of failure, and that stops us so many times from approaching these situations and trying to overcome it. But like if I go back to we were talking about like my first bad instance of going through any mental health problems when I was going through it with comp. The only time it took a whole year, and the only time things started to change and become better was when I finally started facing it head on and attacking the problem and doing the really scary hard work thing and just trying to overcome it. And I didn't do it straight away. I was slowly building my way up to approach the big problems that I was facing. And it's taken years from there then of just slowly attacking scary challenge by scary challenge and problem by problem. And that's just life at the end of the day. It will continue to be that way now, of just life is full of challenges and things to overcome. But ever since growing the resilience to overcome one thing, I just kept that mindset of it's terrifying and it's hard, but what I have to do, what I must do is not hide away from it, not like stay away from doing something about it. I have to face it and do something about it. And I've never gotten it perfect. I've never gotten it right 100% of the time, but just facing it every time. I've gotten better and better, and I've grown, and your problems get smaller and smaller as you keep facing them, and that's just it at the end of the day. You are so right in that it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of time, but you have to face these things to a certain extent and put in the hard work, even if it's small steps. But as long as you keep that mindset of going for it, and you just get better and better as you go, and you learn more as you go.
Well, talking about failure then, because you mentioned about the fear of failing. Now, I know that was a big
Yeah,
thing when you were doing with your drama as well, because you were comparing yourself and being very, very critical on
yeah.
yourself, and that caused a lot of anxiety. So, can you just explain a bit more about those feelings and how you've come out that way now, being a stronger person. But I had that because from my entire drive and all my national titles and travel over Europe and everything was built
Mhm.
literally on the premises of I was scared to fail. So I would punish myself and work myself to the ground
Yeah.
because I didn't want to fail. So can you just explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, that is a massive part of my life, with the fact that performing is my livelihood, and that's everything now for me. That's my career, it's my passion. But it has come littered with so many things that have attacked my mental health just like that. And I think I am always, even now, I have so much work to do to better myself, because I am always dealing with the struggles of confidence when it comes to performing, because there's so much anxiety of, I want to be good. I want to look good on stage. I want an audience to enjoy what I'm doing. I don't want to be shit. And I really, really don't want to fail when I'm on stage in front of a massive live audience, because that's scary. And I don't want to fail in auditions for people. And I think I've been put on a bit of a pedestal, and I've almost put myself on a bit of a pedestal, because I'm doing quite successfully. A lot of people think highly of me, and I think highly of myself. And then I've got this idea in my head of, like, I'm a dreamer. I chase big dreams, and I really want to achieve a lot in my life. But if I don't achieve these big things, I'm gonna feel like a failure. I've got that thought in my head. If I don't make it West End, if I don't make it um real big someday, because of the expectations that have been set for me and that I set out for myself, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I feel like I have to. I'm, like, inclined to make it to these big successful places, and it's a really stressful thing, because it gnaws in the back of my mind anytime I perform. And it's awful, because sometimes it takes away the love for what I do, because I go on stage sometimes with the wrong mindset. I'm going on stage with that mindset of, I have to make it someday. The audience need to like me. I need them to like me, and to feel good about myself, instead of just grounding myself in, like, I'm just a person who loves performing. I'm just a person who loves music, who loves singing and acting, and I'm on stage to show off my unique talents, to practice my craft, and to have fun. And it feels great when I go into it with that mindset, but I'm often littered with the wrong thoughts in the back of my head with this. And it's affected my confidence massively so many times. There's been some periods in the past 2.5 years where I've been close to giving up. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't perform, because it's just ruining me, because I'm setting these expectations for myself. I'm so insecure about like every time I show myself off to an audition panel or to an audience, I critique that's such a massive thing is critiquing yourself. Oh my God, like you speak to any performer, we critique ourselves so much. Like no one in an audience will ever critique us as much as we critique ourselves. Even the smallest problem, the first thing we come off stage and think is, oh, I fucked up that move. Not, oh, I did that well. It's, oh, fuck, that note was a bit pitchy, or, oh, I cracked on that one a bit, or no, my acting wasn't as like I wasn't in it as much then, and just critiquing yourself, and it hurts, it breaks at your confidence so much, and God, but even now that still kills me, and it's something I'm trying to work on because it's something that's just not sustainable. Like I can't keep performing if I go into it with that mindset every time. So I'm
So
trying to
what
train myself to come off stage and think of what I've done well and what were
So
you going to
what are you yeah, sorry. So what are you doing? Because that's not sustainable, obviously, to be self-critical. And it's not just
Yeah,
within performing arts. It's within everything. Because I remember you not doing you fell behind a bit on your logs, your learning logs, and I was like, Lloyd, because you know that you have got, again, you're a teenager, and I'm hard on you in a lot of ways as
yeah,
well. And I said, look, you've got lazy tendencies and everything. You've got to
yeah,
try and overcome them. But what I remember the conversation you saying that I don't want to feel as if I'm letting you down. So there's obviously a massive inner critique. It could be in anything. It could be within your marriage. It can be being a parent. It can be in your job. It doesn't just have to be performing arts. But what are you, for those who are listening as well now, what are you trying to do, or what helps you in order to be more at peace with that inner critic, or to calm it down? So for me, my inner critic, and I've said it last week, I've got an activity that I do with when I do workshops with people, and that's name it, speak it, own it. So I give it a name. So my biggest inner critic, the self-obsessed failure who thinks I'm an absolute just mess of a person. His name's Bob. I give it a voice. Bob then tells me all these negative things, and then I say to him, "Oh, hang a minute now, Bob. Have a chill pill. Sit in the corner. I'll speak to you later." However, Bob might come up with an idea and go, "You shouldn't be doing this," and whatever. And then I'll go, "Actually, Bob, you're right." Because 9 times out of 10, our inner critic or our anxiety is literally just informing us of danger that's around us and what we should do. And normally, when we have that conversation with people, we have a conversation with our inner self, and we separate ourselves, then we're able to have that honest discussion. But that's how I deal with things. But how do you deal with that inner critic to try and put you down all the time?
well, the biggest thing I'm always trying to do is to shift my mindset from being a perfectionist, because that's the one thing that kills me, especially with performing, is drilling perfection every time. I have to get it to a point of, like, for example, a piece I might be doing. I have to get it to a point of where I feel so good about it, or I'm like, oh, I'm shit. Even though I might not be, like, I still might be delivering something amazing, but like one little imperfection. But I'm trying to shift that mindset of being a perfectionist because it's a hard one because it can get you far, but I find it to be really, really unhealthy and really sustainable. And we are an imperfect race of people. We are human at the end of the day. And I don't think that's something we should ever forget. We need to remember to ground ourselves in the fact that we are imperfect. It doesn't it necessarily make it a bad thing. It doesn't make us better or worse, especially in the world of performing. We all have a unique talent to give. And we often, another thing I find myself doing is comparing myself to other people. We do it a lot as performers. We see these top, like Broadway stars that we aim to be one day, and we mold ourselves into these people trying to become something else and comparing ourselves, saying that we're worse because we're not where they are and we're not them. But we all have something unique to give, and that's what we should hone into, and that's what we should nurture um, to the fullest of our abilities. And we should never feel bad or insecure about that. At the end of the day, even if less people appreciate what you have to give than they might appreciate, I'll list a name like a Jeremy Jordan, a big Broadway star like that, doesn't make you better or worse. It's just you have what you've got to give, and you'll find your niche who like that. You'll find your people to support that. But that's what I'm trying to shift, is that perfectionist mindset and of just doing my best, doing what I can, but just remembering to ground myself in joy first, enjoying what I do, enjoying being able to practice my craft, just having gratitude for the fact that I get to do that. Like, I get to go on stage, I get to perform in front of people and to try out different things and to make mistakes. I'm fortunate to be able to fail and to make mistakes and discover new things. And I should find joy in that because that's art and that's beautiful. Um, so I think it's important to ground yourself in that. Um, Speaking of grounding yourself, if I go for something more practical, um, I do a lot of grounding and mindfulness techniques actually. Um, in the past like couple of years, I've done a lot with meditation and mindfulness. Journaling is a massive thing. I love journaling, a daily journal, and also gratitude journaling. I think gratitude is one of the most uh, surefire ways of reaching true joy and happiness, just being grateful for what you do have. That's a very, very good technique to practice, and there's a lot of science to back that up. I use Headspace a lot. Thankfully, I've got it free with the college, so I like to use that. Yeah, so for some more practical things, I like mindfulness techniques and things like that as well. And then yeah, just trying to shift that mindset of being a perfectionist.
No, I think that's amazing, and people really need to take note because it does take time, and it takes an awful lot of time in order to become that more complete version of understanding yourself and not being your worst critic.
Mm.
And I do an awful lot of meditation, mindfulness, and grounding. And what am I thankful for? I'm a big advocate for whatever's done is done. There's a quotation taken from one of my favorite. I'd love to say, right, it's an old-fashioned monk, right, but it's actually taken from a tortoise
Yeah.
from Kung Fu Panda. Master Wu Wei, and he says, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, and today is a gift. Hence why they call it a present." And like it's so true because you can't change what you did yesterday. You can't change what's happening tomorrow. You can only do what's happening today. And then tomorrow you start again, become the
Yeah.
best version. Always look to better yourself. Never try to criticize your things for things that has been done before because you cannot change it at all. You've come across amazing in the podcast, Lloyd. And
Thank
there's been an
you.
awful lot of yeah, I think a lot of people will get where you're wise in how you speak in regards of how you dissect really, really hard topics. And as we come towards like the back end of the podcast now, I want to touch on something that now the amount that you've talked about today, and you're only 18 years of age, but you did find something that has allowed you and a lot of self happiness
Mm.
and love, which is very, very rewarding to see, even though I don't carry the same beliefs as you. It's been amazing to see how that has changed you on a molecular level, really. That's a big word to use, but I just wanna go in from a perspective because we could talk about the topic is like with religion, how you found religion, how that helped you. We could talk about that for hours. But what I want to do, I want to narrow focus on how finding religion for yourself has made your mental health easier to navigate in a
Yeah,
world just full of just nonsense and grey and noise.
yeah. Um, well, yes. So religion, I am Christian, and it has been a completely life-changing thing for me. And it's something I still navigate now because I don't go to church as much as I would like to. I don't follow certain things as much as I would like to, and I still battle with discipline towards it. But I will always talk about it joyfully because it's been life changing. I found it during another hard time dealing with anxiety and depression and things like that. And finding religion and finding this greater sense of purpose and this figure to believe in and to follow has given me an unbelievable amount of inner strength. It gives me a strength to take into any hardships I deal with in my life, any more struggles like that I have, to overcome those things. And like, I think prayer is a beautiful thing because a lot of the hardest moments in my life, I have resorted to prayer, and it has absolutely saved me because it brings this sense of peace and relief that I can leave some of my problems in life. Because that's the thing, at the end of the day, talking about stressing perfection and things, we are imperfect, and there is only so much within our power as human beings. So I feel it's an amazing and beautiful thing that we have the opportunity to go to prayer and to leave some of our burdens and our problems to a higher power, and to trust and to have faith in this being to help us through these times. And that just brings me a greater sense of purpose and strength to tackle these things that I haven't experienced in anything else. And as well as that, it's changed who I am in the way I act and in the way I treat other people. It's changed my sense and my idea of love, and I've seen so much more beauty in it now, and I treat people with so much more care and love and kindness and empathy than I did before. I have so much more time and patience and forgiveness and mercy towards people and just grace in the way I act. And that has brought me so much joy and happiness. And some people think it's cringy, but honestly, like, it's like the saying, what comes around goes around. In treating people like that, I have experienced the most blessings in my life that have come back around to me, and people treat me with kindness, and it brings me joy and happiness. And yeah, it's just been an absolutely life-changing thing that I found, and it takes discipline, which I still need to work on, uh, to follow something like this, follow a purpose like this, and to, go to this thing in the times that I need it. But, like, prayer and going to a higher power and believing in God and just having trust and faith in this person to help me through the things that I can't solve on my own because I'm only human is amazing. And then also it's like having the best friend that you can have as well. Because it's, again, like having a mentor, a father, a friend who you can go to completely openly and honestly about anything you would want to. And that we have already talked about is absolutely incredible. And we need that. So, yeah, I think I could talk about it a lot more. And I probably, in my own human words, I wouldn't be able to explain it to the fullest of my ability and to the extent of how grand and great I truly believe it is. But yeah, if anyone my age or well, it doesn't matter if anyone in general uh ever finds an interest in this kind of thing, I would advocate for religion and Christianity. It's been a life-changing thing.
Oh, I'm glad that you've spoke about that because I know how much it has actually changed your mentality, your approach to things, your self-critic. It does help with that self-critic because you know that for your own sake that you feel as if like I don't have to criticize myself as much because
Yeah.
God forgives me for things.
And
So
love myself. Yeah.
yeah, and and that's such a good thing to look to finish on the podcast. Nearly is that love yourself. I hated myself for years, and I hated the person I was post Thailand, the going out getting drunk every weekend, bouncing from friendships groups and negative feelings, the suicidal tendencies, the fact that I'm not the best father, and I let this perception of myself, I'm like the self critic or Bob as I call him now, to consume me to the point of that is who I was, and it's not. That is not who I am. I am human, like you said. I make mistakes, but I learn from them. And hopefully, by doing what I'm trying to do with the Forge Within podcast, through the Forge method, workshops, the webinars, the book, they're all there to try and help people understand this horrific thing that people go through. And every single person on this earth has mental health. Everyone. There is no one on this earth who doesn't have any mental health. And we are in absolutely no way at all to judge people how they manage and navigate that. If they do a negative impact, though, that's obviously down to them. We can't turn around and say that's wrong. That might be the way that that they navigate those waters of mental health. And in my eyes, that could be seen as negative, but it might be positive to them. But we must let people navigate them waters by themselves whilst being there with them, but allowing them to make the choices and try to guide them as we can, but not to define where they go. And for me, even though I don't believe in God, I still 100% respect and admire your admiration, determination for placing your faith in something that helps you. And as a father, that's all I would really want, is to make sure that you are successful and that you're mentally well and you're healthy as well. So if that works for you, fabulous. And whatever works for other people, brilliant. But just be mindful, looking at different, if it's negatively impacting you, then that's when you need to look for help or ask other people, right, okay, what can I do differently? But this has been, we were only two episodes in. The first one was with Mum, and this episode's obviously with you. And I hope that a lot of people get to listen to this podcast, this episode, because there's it's been very, very interesting, even though I know everything in regards of what you've been through and stuff. When you actually sit there, listen, and watch the way that you unpack these complex topics, a lot of people can take a lot of wisdom from it. And if only one person takes something small from a conversation, then we've done our job in regards to putting the message out there. This podcast is based on real stories and real advice from anyone in this world. It's not discriminated due to your area, nothing whatsoever. Because I genuinely believe that mental health services, whether that's podcasts, whether that's webinars, they should all be accessible. Everyone should have an accessible range of accessing it in different formats. a lot of the stuff with the mental health stuff that I'm doing with the podcast is all free. People can come on and listen to things. They can listen to topics. And I hope an awful lot of people get to listen to this because they can learn an awful lot from it. So before
Well,
we go
I
on,
hope they do. I might have rambled on a couple topics, but it was almost like having just a normal conversation, me and you again. But I would like to. I don't know if you were going into it then, but I would love to finish though on. You had a question for me, which I think was if I was to ask someone my age,
yeah,
or
so
if
I was gonna finish. That's what I was gonna finish on. So
yeah, I'd
We
like to.
we 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 tend to end the show on questions about. I think when we hear about the guests, about what they're doing, what's helped them, and everything. I think it's very, very rewarding for the final message to go out to the person who has been the guest on the show, and for you, it's just asking that advice. If you could give any advice to someone at your age, and it doesn't just have to be your age, it could be to
Yeah.
anyone in topic, but I think an awful lot of youngsters who could get the opportunity to listen to this, they would realize that they're not alone. So what
Mm.
kind of guidance and advice would you give to someone who has listened to the podcast episode, experienced things that you've been through, and yeah, what strength can they take from that?
Well, I would again like to go into that thing of stop stressing perfection, especially at a young age. Just, it's the time to just allow yourself to grow, allow yourself to fail, allow yourself to do things wrong. And I think that's the most important thing. You are not going to get everything right. And that is a-okay. Allow yourself to make these mistakes and learn and grow from it. This is the time to do it. Don't be afraid of that. And just throughout all those things, find all the ways you can to love yourself deeply and beautifully through it all because we all deserve to, no matter who we are and no matter what struggles we go through and no matter what mistakes we make, we are not failures and we deserve to love ourselves. So allow yourself to grow, to learn, to experience these things, especially at a young age, and love yourself. I think that's what I would say to someone my age dealing
I
with
love
those.
that. No, I love that. I think that's an amazing way to look to close the podcast. And I just want to say, Lloyd, it's I run out of words to try to explain how amazing a person you are, and a lot of people feel that, and this is the right platform. And I hope a lot of other people get to listen to realize what I see and what your mother sees, and what an awful lot of your friends see in you as well.
Oh,
And I know an awful lot of people would like to wish you all the success going forward, and I know you'll achieve everything you can. If you want to get in touch with Lloyd, he isn't on any social media at all, so you're
oh,
not
good
going to get in
luck.
touch with
Yeah.
him. Lloyd doesn't do social media. That's another conversation we could talk about,
Yeah.
but we've
Good for
done, we've
you then.
covered so much.
If you wanna help your mental health, get off social media, I'm telling you. Just stay on
Yeah.
WhatsApp, that's all you need.
Yeah, so we'll stay off WhatsApp. But
Yeah.
again, Lloyd does an awful lot of stuff with the shows and stuff. You can catch him in. Um, he's been he is in School of Rock. You got coming up now
Yeah.
for the
Finn, in the Abertillery Met, if anyone wants to buy tickets, it's May time. May as well, get some free advertising, why
get
not?
some free advertising then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we
so Dewey
cargo.
is it?
Huh?
What's your character's name?
Dewey Finn, so I got the lead
That's
role. Yeah.
yeah. So for
Exciting.
anyone who doesn't know, Dewey Finn is Jack Black's role in School of Rock. If anyone can remember going
Yeah.
back there, so that's going to be really interesting. He's got lots of exciting things coming on, and I just want to say thank you so much, Lloyd, for taking your time out today to have another conversation with a grumpy old man like me.
Thank you for having me, as
No
always.
problem. This is the Forge Within podcast. I'm your host, Sam Wilkes, and we have real people telling real stories about how mental health has shaped their lives. And hopefully, together, we can change and break the stigma around mental health. I'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Bye.